Well, folks, let's replace a disintegrated GM headliner. I replaced the disintegrated GM headliner in my 1989 Chevy Silverado pickup, but this really applies to most any car with a sagging GM headliner. Look, for around about 50 bucks and a little time, you can easily replace an annoying sagging headliner and have a professional looking interior once again in your old or classic automobile. Since doing this project, I've noticed a lot of GM vehicles with similar problems. I suspect that GM had a bad batch of glue in the 1980s and 1990 era vehicles. This procedure will avoid stapling the fabric to the fiber backing, which is a reasonable, but it's not a very professional solution. The original aged GM headliner was okay with the visors up, but the rest of the time it was dragging on the top of my head. Even with the visors up, it was dragging on the top of my head. I took the headliner off of the fiber backing while it was in the vehicle. This was a mistake. It was too messy. You can see what this mess looked like if you look at the visors at the end of this video. The same kind of particulate matter fell all over my carpet. I suggest that you remove the plastic trim surround pieces around the doors and then remove the entire headliner backing and the fabric before separating the fabric from the backing. Look, you can purchase a set of tools from Harbor Freight for about $5, and it makes it much easier to take the plastic surround pieces off. The headliner fiber backing is held in place by plastic surrounds over the doors and the trim pieces in the side and rear of the vehicle. Also, there's two Velcro pieces at the windshield that hold the thing up front. Here's a picture of the Velcro pieces on the cab and the Velcro pieces on the top of the headliner fiber backing. Replacement headliner fabric was purchased from a local trim shop for about $7 a yard. The fabric has a foam backing, and 2 yards we needed for my pickup truck. You may need more if you're doing an automobile. The trim shop also sold a contact adhesive for about $7. This adhesive will stand up to the environment normally found inside of a vehicle. You're going to need about 2 yards of fabric, as I said, and buy 2 cans, and if you think you're going to need 3, buy 3 cans of this. Cut a piece of headliner fabric so there's about 2 inches excess around all the edges of the fiber backing board, and then apply the adhesive to both the headliner material and the fiber backing board and let it dry for about 5 to 10 minutes till it's tacky. Then with a helper, carefully place the 2 pieces together. You only got 1 chance here. Once the 2 pieces touch one another, the adhesive bond is permanent. Here's a photo that was taken of the headliner fabric attached to the backing. I put some weights on it, which really aren't needed because the adhesive is of such good quality that these things go into the visor indentations very easily. Once you have the exposed part of the headliner glued and attached to the backing, turn the whole assembly over and apply contact adhesive to the excess fabric and to the backing where the excess fabric will be stuck, because you're going to have to roll the fabric back over the backing board so that it makes a nice clean finish. Now you can see that I have clamps in place here, and I've cut out spaces for the Velcro strips. I ran out of adhesive. I only bought 1 can. So I had to use some contact adhesive, and unfortunately it did not work near as well as the adhesive I purchased from the trim shop. Buy professional adhesive. If you're going to put power mirrors or radar detectors or anything that requires power up in the overhead, what you'll need to do is probably run 12 volts up to the overhead. I ran a 14 gauge 12 volt wire into the overhead panel for future use. I have no need for it today. I ran it through the threshold on the door, back behind, and up the rear of the cab and over to the front of the ceiling. Now I have 12 volt power up in the head in case I need it. The headliner assembly, here's the headliner assembly installed, showing the rear and side trims in place. It installs very easily. It just pushes right up in there. Here's another view showing the driver's cab and the front, and here's the headliner from the passenger side, rear and front. Well, the visors are next. The hinge is a friction fit on each visor and the hinge is probably already removed, so you can easily pull the hinge out of the visor with a little effort. Then using a stitch removal tool, you need to carefully remove all of the stitched seam around the factory visor so that the internal chipboard damage is minimal. The chipboard will be used as a pattern for the replacement visor. Remove the fabric from the chipboard. In this case, the glue was disintegrated just like the headliner glue. Look at all the mess this thing made. What a mess. Use the old chipboard as a pattern and trace it exactly on to a new piece of chipboard of equal thickness and cut the two pieces of chipboard for both visors. Now lay both chipboard pieces onto the new fabric, and I purchased this fabric from a leather shop. It's imitation PVC leather. Allow a 1/2 inch of excess seepage around each pattern and cut the pieces of fabric with a 1/2 inch border traced around the pattern. Here's the final piece of fabric with the borders marked around it. Now what you're going to need to do is apply the trim tack adhesive to the correct side of the pattern and the fabric and let it dry for 5 to 10 minutes. And then carefully mate the two pieces together using the seepage marks as a guide. Now apply the adhesive to the seepage and perimeter of the back of the chipboard and roll all of the seepage edges around the chipboard so that the chipboard looks very smooth and clean. Now the completed new fabric chipboard assembly can now be fitted to the factory visor assembly. Carefully stitch the perimeter of the fabric chipboard about a 1/2 inch in and around the masonite visor assembly, being careful not to run the needle through the masonite hardboard. The stitched replacement visor looks pretty good for an amateur, doesn't it? A regular sewing machine can be used for this procedure. I used a commercial type sewing machine. Now insert the hinge and rods in each visor and install them using the 3 mount screws on each side of the vehicle. Use a needle pick tool to probe the factory mounting holes above the headliner of the assembly so you can find where the screws goes. Here's the finished headliner and visors. Wrinkles did relax after a week or two.